Hi everyone, my name is Bryce Rankins, and you're listening to episode 10 of Sneaky Geek. Hey guys, before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much. Seriously. We're on episode 10. That's 10 whole episodes. 11 if you count that little Star Wars bit. That's amazing. I would not have been able to get to episode 10 or have the perseverance to get to episode 10 if it weren't for the fact that you guys are constantly encouraging me and talking to me about all the subject matter and reaching out to me. I've had people reach out to me who I hadn't spoken to in years who are listening to this podcast, and I think that's just incredible. I think it's amazing that so much of my geek life from back when I was in high school has come back with this podcast, this sort of resurgence of the Geek Bryce that kind of hit under the radar for quite a while. So thank you. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all the feedback and everything that you do. Seriously, I'm so happy to be here. Now, before we start this episode, I do think I kind of owe you guys a little word of warning. This show is definitely not about nitpicking and complaining and whining about what's going on and how our childhoods are being ruined, which is a different concept compared to what seems is the growing trend in geek culture. We are absolutely about celebration, but there comes a point when something has frustrated us or disappointed us so much that we kind of can't help ourselves. So, heads up, this episode's going to complain a little bit. We are excited to start talking to you about the Justice League, but we would be remiss if we did not discuss the various problems that are concerning all of us regarding Justice League, given that it is being directed by and helmed by the same man who brought us Batman vs. Superman. So, hope you like it.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's four greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bryce Rankins. I'm here with Brian Romero.
Oh, hey.
And our frequent guest, Dave Ziegler.
Howdy.
On another episode of Sneaky Geek. And we are coming to you after Bryce has just watched Wonder Woman and Batman vs. Superman for the first time.
Ouch.
Within the span of 24 hours so that he could be caught up for Justice League, which is coming out at the end of this week.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to go see it at the end of this week when it's...
I probably will, actually. I'm pretty jazzed.
Right on.
I wasn't jazzed at the end of Batman vs. Superman, but I was at the end of Wonder Woman.
Okay, that's fair.
I will see it over Thanksgiving break.
So I'm going to see it eventually in the next couple weeks, but Punisher's out this weekend.
I'm not so concerned about that. I mean, I'm so far behind on those.
Oh, okay.
But I'm having shoulder surgery on Friday.
Oh, okay.
But we'll take the Ziglets over the
There you
Thanksgiving
go.
break.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What should we know about the Justice League going into this movie?
Going into the movie or in terms of like having a baseline knowledge of what the Justice League is?
Let's say
Because I think maybe those are two different things.
I would agree.
And if you want to know what you should know about the movie, we can talk about that.
Let's start with what the Justice League is in the comics.
Sure. I'm not going to assume that listeners to this episode have listened to all the previous episodes, even though many of them may have. But just to summarize a few things.
Yeah.
So with the Silver Age, we talked about how Julius Schwartz decided that the time was right to revive and revamp some of DC's Golden Age heroes from the 30s and 40s. And
Right.
he starts that in 1956.
After kind of a period of westerns and other slice of life more comic
where
books.
really the only superhero comics that DC was publishing were Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Gotcha.
Okay, so 1956, Showcase number 4, which was an anthology title, which we've talked about. We get the first appearance of the new Flash,
Right.
Barry Allen, police scientist. He runs for... The Flash feature runs for 3 issues and spins off into its own title.
Gotcha.
Then they revamp and revive the Green Lantern. This time it's Hal Jordan, a test pilot.
Yeah.
Again, a
Space
hero,
age and science.
a hero for the new age.
Right.
And then we get Ray Palmer as the Atom, who, unlike his Golden Age counterpart, can actually shrink to the size of an atom.
An atom. What?
At some point, Julie said, okay, let's revamp and revive the Justice Society of America, that first super team from the Golden Age. And it gets revived in The Brave and the Bold, issue 28, as the Justice League of America. And you've got Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Green Lantern, The Flash, the Martian Manhunter, who debuted as sort of a science fiction hero. And so they're fighting Starro, the Star Conqueror, a giant space starfish. It's super cool. The Justice League runs in The Brave and the Bold for a couple of issues before it spins out into its own series.
Got it. So it runs as a story within this anthology book until it gets its own title?
Yeah, Brave and the Bold became a Batman team-up book. But originally it was a tryout book, just like Showcase was. With the Justice League spinning off into its own title, we get Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman on board and incorporated. Wonder Woman was in that Brave and the Bold 28. Batman and Superman showed up, I think, during those original Brave and the Bold issues, but by the time we get to Justice League number 1, Justice League of America number 1, they are part of the team.
Gotcha.
And so then they start adding team members. Green Arrow joins. The Atom joins. Hawkman, I think, was the next one to join, and so on. It's the major players.
Gotcha.
With a few minor
So
players.
historically, who's in the original team-up?
The original team-up from Brave and the Bold 28, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, The Flash, and the Martian Manhunter.
Got it. Cool. Well, Justice League's coming out.
It is.
And it looks to be
Interesting.
I mean, I haven't seen hardly any of the trailers, and
Right.
Dave doesn't watch trailers.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true.
Unless
I
he
don't watch
plans-
trailers for movies I already know I'm going to see.
Right.
Did you already
Rule
know?
number 4.
Did you already know you were going to see Justice League?
I decided I was going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Here's what
Yeah,
kills me.
yeah.
Like, I watched the trailer for Batman versus Superman because I was on the fence about it.
Right.
Gotcha.
And I thought, okay, that actually looks pretty cool.
The trailer was actually really cool.
Yeah. And then I was I'd say completely let down by the finished product.
Oh, absolutely.
It's fair.
Yeah. So that's where Dave and I are at right now. We did not love BVS.
I did not love BVS by any means. I don't think I hated it as much as
I think
most
you
of America.
enjoyed it more than we did.
I didn't. When Wonder Woman ended,
Wonder Woman was great.
I sat
Liked
down.
Wonder Woman.
I sat down and I watched Wonder Woman with my mom. And when Wonder Woman ended, I was choking up. She was crying. Sorry, Mom, I'm putting you on blast, but she was crying.
Oh, I did.
And we both were like, "Oh, Dave, you cry at every movie."
Not every movie. Well, I cried at Batman versus Superman, but that's because I spent money on it.
Yeah.
But she's, we're both tearing up, and Wonder Woman jumps out, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is exciting. This was great." When I ended Batman versus Superman last night, I was laying on the couch and I was watching the movie or whatever, and I finished it. And I thought, well, this seems like it could be a pretty cool setup, but I also still had the lingering feeling of what the hell's going on that I had for pretty much the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that the movie was confusing, it just was unnecessarily complicated to follow.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the problems with Batman versus Superman and DC's approach to its film universe so far have to fall at Zach Snyder's feet. As much as I liked 300, as much as I really liked Watchmen,
Was great.
which is a difficult work to
pull off.
adapt.
Yeah.
He makes great action movies. I don't think he has any real concept of what makes a good Superman movie.
Yeah.
There were some big problems with Man of Steel. Yeah. I think some of my problems were different from a lot of other people's problems. I know a lot of people were like, Superman doesn't kill, blah blah. But I could see that. I could understand.
I totally had no problem with him snapping
Zod's. Yeah, Clark is more experienced in using his powers, but not in combat situations. And he's got no combat skills whatsoever.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Versus Zod, who is less skilled with his powers, but trained from birth.
Right.
Yeah.
To be a soldier. Yeah.
I can certainly see Clark in that moment not really seeing any other way out.
Yeah.
And his reaction to what he's done was real to me.
That was my favorite part of the whole film.
Yeah, that rang true for me. And I understand a lot of people saying, no, Superman doesn't kill. Mark Waid, a guy whose work I admire, whose Superman work I really like.
Yeah.
That's the deal breaker for him. And, that's cool. I'm fine with that.
And you know what? A lot of that happened with Batman in BVS because
Batman busted out a bunch of guns.
Yeah, and he shut up the place, and that was
It was
interesting.
strange.
And there was a throwaway line with Alfred. It's like, he's been through some shit, and he's different than he was a while ago. And he said that, and it was just a very quick one-liner.
That sort of live long enough to see yourself become the villain concept.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I get it, but they didn't really spend enough time setting that.
No, instead we got to set up the fact that Bruce Wayne is an orphan. Oh, to quote Exposition Perry, breaking news, water, wet.
Yeah, and here's the deal. It's 2017. I'm not trying to sound gatekeepy here, but it's 2017. If you don't already know Batman's origin, get out, because you've clearly wandered into the wrong movie.
And you know what?
By mistake.
Marvel did a great thing with that. They skipped Spider-Man's origin story.
Yeah. Because we already know
You
it.
know what's up.
Yeah.
Just get right into it.
Because I think we're in a weird time period that I don't think Warner Brothers has figured out how to adjust yet, in that because we've had multiple versions of the franchise, even though it may not be in the same universe, it is in its own weird way an additional sequel.
Yeah, and I understand DC not wanting to follow the Marvel.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
It does. Yeah.
However, I think you can follow some things from the blueprint without falling into lockstep with what they're doing. If you want to make a transition movie between Man of Steel and Justice League, or whatever, the road to Justice League, that's fine. But you still need to move Superman's story along. And I feel like they tried to drop a trail of breadcrumbs for us to figure out Batman, but like birds came and ate a bunch of the breadcrumbs. And so we get little bits and pieces. Like we see Robin's uniform.
Yeah.
The tribute to Robin.
It was all jacked up.
And
spray painted and
and
really cool. I like that.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
That was Robin's uniform?
Yes.
I was really confused why Batman's uniform was sprayed, because I was like, how could he have sprayed that on Batman?
No.
Because it was so freaking monochromatic.
Well, and remember, in Suicide Squad, there's a sequence where they're talking, it's a file sequence, and they talk about how both Harley and the Joker were convicted or accused of the death of Robin.
Yeah.
Really?
And that's where that tied into. Yeah.
I did not.
They didn't say which Robin, but they said Robin.
Yeah. And the impression that I get from BVS is that Batman's been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Seemed like it.
Okay. Why is everybody acting like he's some kind of urban legend?
Yeah.
Why is there no recognition? Oh, he's he's back. No, where's Batman been?
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's, this is weird. What is this?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys. Seriously.
And they even went, I really like Batfleck.
I did too. I thought Ben Affleck was
really cool.
Great.
It was an interesting choice going a little bit older.
His script in BVS was terrible, but I liked him a lot more in Suicide Squad.
It was really well in there. My thing with BVS 2 is it's supposed to be a Superman sequel. It did not feel like that at all.
No.
I was just thinking as you were talking about all this, I really liked most of Superman's story in BVS. I enjoyed the idea that he comes before the Senate to have a discussion about whether or not what he's doing is okay.
Sure.
And that everything blows up and he's standing there in the rubble and he tries his best to help. And then he's like, I can't handle this. I need to go home. And he goes, hangs out with Martha. Like, I liked all that. I didn't really like any part of Batman's story except for Alfred. I thought Jeremy Irons was a great Alfred, and I thought that where Batman's story was going had a lot of potential, but I liked Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I liked when Batman was acting as Bruce Wayne. When Batman was acting as Batman,
it was off. It was to me.
A lot of those problems. Really, it's an urban legend because you have a giant spotlight that is humongous with his symbol on it that everyone probably recognizes by now.
Right.
Yeah.
He has guns on his ship.
But I don't have a problem with the guns on the ship. My issue is
the branding.
Yeah, which is a throwback to, we've talked about the pulp characters before.
Yeah.
The Phantom has that skull ring that puts his mark on the faces of the dude he punches out.
But that being a pretty much death sentence. Oh, you've been branded by the bat.
That part.
You're obvious. But at the same time, I also liked that he was doing it to like human traffickers. So it was like he did it to the worst of the worst.
Sure.
And it is known in prison that if you are doing something as deplorable and horrible as that you're probably not going to do well in the
They're criminals, but they have standards.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but as far as Superman's story, I really enjoyed it. I liked Man of Steel, and I liked kind of where his character was going.
I liked the relationship with Clark and Lois.
I did. I think she's the best Lois I've seen so far.
See, I was not a fan of Amy Adams.
Oh my!
I'm not a fan in general for some weird reason. Even because she was in The Office for a couple episodes, and like I didn't like her. But
see, I loved at the end of Man of Steel that we've got the whole. Is Clark Superman or isn't Clark Superman? Is Lois going to find out? That we've got that all out of the way.
Yeah.
I like that. Which in turn, well, in BVS, I like the chemistry of their relationship. They're in a romantic relationship, and I like that. What I don't, but that also ties into something I didn't like about BVS. Lois, it took her a couple of weeks in terms of travel time and stuff to figure out that Clark is Superman.
Right.
Okay. Batman is all worked up about this alien flying around the city next door, and he can't spend 20 fucking minutes figuring out who he is.
What comic book did Batman originate from?
Detective Comics 27. Batman's supposed to be the world's greatest detective.
Right.
If Batman doesn't take the time to figure out that Clark is Superman or vice versa, you're asking me to accept one of two unacceptable positions.
Right.
Position number one, he just didn't fucking care enough to take the time. Clearly, that's not the case.
That's not how Batman works.
Clearly. Unacceptable position number two, you're asking me to accept that Lois Lane is a better fucking detective than Batman. And like I said, I like Lois. I like the acting choices that Amy Adams makes. She's not a better detective than
She's
Batman.
good. She's not that good.
Bingo.
Yeah. What I found interesting, too, is on the same note, you've had Clark Kent growing up in Smallville, but also kind of using his powers, and there might be some rumors coming out. Like, as many notes...
That's how Lois tracks him.
Yeah, and you know what? With as many notes as Batman takes on all the other superhumans that make a quick little cameo in the movie, like, you didn't think to pick up on some kid that's,
pulling buses out of
rivers.
All of the other examples of meta-humans that the world is giving us.
Yeah. And obviously at this point, like, I think Superman's a little bit younger than Batman.
Yeah.
Considerably.
So, like, he would have been around.
Which I kind of liked that choice to make Superman
and have an older Batman. I dug that.
But again, the world is aware of Batman's presence, or at least should be, because we've got Belle Rev, the prison for metahumans that we see in Suicide Squad.
Right.
And most of those cats are Batman villains.
Yeah.
So why is everybody acting like Batman just, what? We've never seen anything like this before.
Well, and it seems that it's on the street level, like the ghettos don't know about it, like they're not getting the information.
But that seems where Batman is working a lot.
Yeah, he's kind of a street level hero. He's the daredevil in this universe. He goes through and by day he handles his stuff. He isn't like Iron Man, who's just out there constantly saving the world.
By the way, I'm Iron Man.
Yeah, he saves Gotham, and he sticks to Gotham. Batman does not go out and save the world all the time.
Which is interesting because, again, Metropolis is like, it seems like it's literally next door. Like, it's San Francisco, Oakland situation.
Yeah.
Which is like, you didn't...
New York, New Jersey.
Yeah. It's like you didn't think to take a ferry across the river there. You got a boat.
Right. You got a ship. Plane.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough reviewing of Batman versus Superman.
I'll say, this isn't quite a BVS bitch fest.
Two more points I'd like to make.
Yes.
One that I liked, one that I didn't. Two that I didn't. Sorry. One of the things I really liked about BVS is the way the beginning ties into the end of Man of Steel with Bruce Wayne in Metropolis. I thought that was an outstanding choice.
It was so cool to watch that on the other side.
Yes. And two things I didn't like. First of all, safe word Martha. Come on now.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
I didn't hate it.
That was...
I hated it.
I know you both hated it. I liked the idea that, like...
Do we become best friends? Yup. You want to do karate in the garage? Yup.
Okay. I hated how quickly Batman changed his mind. I did not hate the fact that Superman's like, blah, 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 Martha, and Batman's like, why are you saying Martha? And then Lois is like, that's his mom. And then,
do you not know how secret identities work?
Well, the brief moment where you can kind of see Batman goes, this alien has parents on Earth? Because as far as Batman knows, this dude showed up as an adult. And I liked that.
But that's
Bad detective work.
Bad detective work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wish they had done this because it would have been so fucking cool. The scene on the helicopter pad with Lex, where he's explaining the plan to Superman or whatever.
After being very erratic the entire movie.
Jittery, twitchy. Twitchy's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Man, if he had ripped his face off and said, haha, by the way, I'm the Joker, I would have been, holy balls.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Lex Luthor is the most in control dude, not just in the room, but probably in the city.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is just hanging on to control by his fingers, by his fingernails.
It seems like
Yeah, and it seems like he's doing and if he isn't doing that, then it's a ruse to make sure nobody underestimates him.
Yeah.
And the fact is that's also never been Lex Luthor's MO. Right. He has been, I'm the smartest man in the room. Gene Hackman is a great Lex Luthor.
It was good.
And when I think of his voice, I think of a Gene Hackman-esque voice or something at least very calm.
I think of Clancy Brown from the animated series.
Oh,
Fair.
yeah.
But if Jesse Eisenberg had been cast as the Joker and Jared Leto had been cast as Lex Luthor,
That would have been...
I think both films would have been much better served by that casting.
I didn't even think about that.
Agreed.
Wow.
I think Leto could have handled Luthor's character a lot better than he handled the Joker.
Yeah.
And it, like I mentioned before, the Lex Luthor in BVS is supposed to be Junior. I mean, it...
Yeah, but
And it,
still.
which is interesting. So it's like, okay, like you give yourself a little bit different character to work with, but you're still kind of basing yourself off your father figure kind of thing.
Well,
If
But
you're
at
not
the
going to
same
make that
time-
openly and totally clear to your audience,
Right.
then you're making an excuse for yourself.
Yeah.
and in the comics, in the source material, Lex Luthor Jr. is adult Lex's brain in a clone body.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's
Still not Lex.
So he's still...
Junior.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's clear to the readers, hey, this is and isn't your daddy's Lex Luthor.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
whereas there's nothing to indicate, aside from the one throwaway line that is Lex Luthor Jr., that this is not Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he shaves his head at the end. He's Lex Luthor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, this was Lex Luthor, and for whatever reason, he had been experimenting with speed. Okay.
Something.
So Man of Steel happens, Zod dies, Batman versus Superman happens, he says the safe word, and what irritates me is not that he's like, blah, blah, Martha, and then Batman's like, oh shit, you have parents on this planet? How come I didn't figure this out already? Like, I was willing to accept that. What I wasn't willing to accept was that they did this bullshit fade to black, fade back in, okay, I'm your best friend now. I'll take care of it. Don't you worry, bro.
Damn quick.
And it was like, you're gonna cut and just let us assume that this character development happened.
Yeah.
And that's bull.
Yeah, they set up the
did
entire...
you see Aragon back in the day? When the stupid 14-year-old Star Wars ripoff about dragons?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
yeah.
The dragon comes flying towards the earth, and then it fades to black. We fade back in, and the dragon's like, oh, that was rough. And it was like, why wouldn't you show us the landing? What is this, a freaking like airplane version of the film where we fade out so we don't see, disturbing material? It's bullshit.
Well,
Piss me off. Because, like, just have a conversation, Batman and Superman. Have a conversation and talk about it. Even if it's like, quick. You did it with the rest of the film's weird montages.
Yeah.
and
Is character development beneath you, Zach Snyder?
yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I didn't feel like they earned the death of Superman story.
No.
Okay. When Superman fights Doomsday and dies in the comics, it is a meaningful death. Because by that point, Superman has been a longtime citizen of Metropolis. He's defended the world on countless occasions. Whereas here, he's been in town for 20 minutes.
Yeah. They didn't set it up.
No.
At all.
This is not the story you tell in the
First instance of Batman and Superman and Doomsday.
This shows up in the Justice League movie.
Right.
This shows up, in the last Man of Steel film. The last Superman film.
Yeah.
Whatever. Not 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so we all had problems with Man of Steel. We don't even need to talk about our problems with Suicide Squad, of which there are many.
I actually liked Suicide Squad.
I did too.
quite
Doesn't
a
make
bit.
it a good movie.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, it has some problems, but it's still more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Certainly. Then Wonder Woman happened. Wonder Woman was great.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
It was good. It was good.
I have no problems with Wonder Woman. That as a film, there was really nothing to it that I didn't enjoy. Maybe I would have liked if the Germans. Oh my gosh, the Allies are just as bad as the Axis powers. If that had been the end result a little bit more. If they had pushed that narrative a little bit more, I would have liked that because I'm all for making the Nazis inhuman assholes.
You're right, because they were.
Because, Nazis.
Yeah.
But the Germans in World War I were pawns of the Kaiser. They weren't bad, evil people.
Right.
And toward the end of the movie, that she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're just as corrupted by Ares as everyone else is." I don't know that they pushed that narrative enough in it, but that's a filmmaking thing. As far as a story goes, I think they nailed the concept of Wonder Woman. I think Amazon,
Her character is very well done.
the Amazonians or the Amazons. The Amazons are fantastic.
Every scene on whatever place.
Themyscira.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was great.
Oh yeah, and color wise, I like that as soon as they enter into
Man's world.
It darkened.
Like
up.
she even said, she goes, "This place is hideous."
Filthy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why they didn't keep her in World War II.
To not be Captain America, I wager.
Well,
but it is also the war to end all wars. If they're going to say a huge war is coming that goes on for way too long with way too many people involved.
Well, but isn't World War II even bigger?
Yeah.
I don't think World War II is nearly as... World War II is a lot of controlled countries having nothing they can do, and there's genocide and stuff, but like the Western Front and...
Sure, I understand the trench warfare.
Trench warfare, I think, is far more brutal. And there's 27
Absolutely.
countries involved in World War I. World War II, Russia's Russia now, and they haven't split it up yet. And Austria-Hungary has been, split up, but Poland isn't fighting. Belgium
Theater.
isn't. Pacific Theater's definitely but truth be told, what Japan's doing during World War II is just as awful as anything that Germany's doing as far as the Chinese and Korea and everything else.
I guess for me, and I'm open to changes to the storytelling. I mean,
These aren't the comics. We could.
Yeah, and I wasn't offended by the decision to place this one in World War I. It just doesn't make much sense to me for a couple of reasons. I mean, and I understand the things you're talking about, like with the Western Front and the trenches and all that. I get that; it makes sense.
Yeah.
So where was she during World War II? The Nazis are a convenient villain, and historically, in terms of Wonder Woman's publication history, she's a World War II character.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been, maybe a sequel. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I wanted out of Captain America. I wanted my sequel to still take place during World War II or other parts.
The sequel is fan-fucking-tastic.
The sequel is, but when I went into it, I was expecting more pre-Tony Stark time period. More, but then the end happened, and I was like, well, I guess we can either go back to World War II or we can go forward.
Yeah, well, there really isn't any place to go back to.
No,
Yeah.
and with her not, being frozen in ice, she has that option.
Yeah,
Steve Rogers doesn't have that option.
Right.
true.
So Wonder Woman came out. That's the reason why I'm excited for Justice League.
Likewise.
Which brings us to Justice League. I'm excited.
Well, excited might be overstating it for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly because I know that Snyder kind of had to step back from the film
Right.
for some tragic reasons,
Yeah.
and
That's rough, yeah.
I would never ever wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
And yet his fingerprints are going to be all over.
Oh,
this.
yeah.
And again, I don't feel like he really understands DC's heroes. Just to go back for a second, look at the way that he portrays Superman. Not even just in terms of the character, but in terms of the actual filmmaking. If you go online, you can and look for Man of Steel color corrections.
Oh, I've seen
You
that.
can see the video, and Superman's costume is that bright blue, that bright red, and exactly, and that's how Superman's supposed to be.
Right.
He is the light to Batman's dark.
Yeah.
They are supposed to be
sense.
in contrast.
Yeah.
And yet
dark.
everything looks with your eyeballs kind of muddy and dark.
The point where Superman shows up in BVS and knocks his tumbler out of the way and goes up and rips the door off of Batman. If Man of Steel had set him up as that light, as that good, wholesome character, that moment would have been so powerful because it would have been not quite out of character, but you would have seen how far he's willing to go. Like, listen, buddy, knock it off.
Yeah.
And instead it was like, okay, Superman's here. He's about to handle this.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I tried talking to you for like 10 seconds. Now I'm going to fight you.
Yeah.
And that's not the Superman
him.
I know.
Yeah.
I liked the, I need to talk to you, and he's like, fine, I'm just going to knock you down and then we're going to talk. That I didn't mind so much, but I would have wanted that to be more meaningful because of a contrasting, colorful. Metropolis is not supposed to be a gross, dingy city either.
Metropolis is the city of tomorrow.
Yeah. And it was very dark and grungy like Gotham.
But Superman's not in Justice League, although I have sneaking suspicions he'll show up at the very end, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Because, they couldn't even let the dirt settle on his coffin without it floating a little bit and being
you know what's up.
We all know what's up.
His shield is in all the promo material.
Not only that, but there's a big old thing, if you're reading anything online, that he had to come back for some reshoots. Okay, where's that sign there? But also, he couldn't shave his mustache.
Yep, for the next role he's doing.
Yeah. And so, contractually, he couldn't shave his mustache, so any kind of reshoots that he's in, which was basically everything with Joss Whedon, came and took over from Zach Snyder.
Right.
They have to CG his mustache out.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Computer-generated mustache.
You know what? I will say this about the DC universe. I have had one scene from pretty much every Marvel movie, because they ship it out to a bajillion different groups, but there's been at least one scene in each Marvel movie where I go, that CG was terrible.
Yep.
It has happened in every film. That hasn't happened in any DC movies. As far as graphics are concerned, they got that shit on lockdown.
Consistent, yeah.
I mean, these are the people who brought us Quidditch tournaments, so I think they understand how to make people fly.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how Marvel has managed to have at least 1 to 2 scenes each film where things don't work.
20 different
Usually they use 20 different houses, but I think that graphically, I think they'll have it handled pretty well. I know nothing about Cyborg's entry into this other than his brief moment in BVS. Flash has that weird moment where he shows up in Batman's cave.
At the beginning of the nightmare sequence.
Yeah.
I liked the nightmare sequence.
I did too.
I thought that was really cool.
I did too. I thought that was a really neat, this is where this could go.
But again, it all feels so rushed.
Totally.
Let's think about this, okay? So, Marvel, before we get to the Avengers, we've got, and these are in no particular order, but we've got
Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. We've got the Incredible Hulk in there.
Yeah.
Because that's...
I love that movie.
I do too.
So we've got 4 full movies. And then
Iron Man 2.
Huh?
And then we also have Iron Man 2's in there.
That's right. Iron Man 2 was before Avengers.
Right.
Yeah. So you got 5 movies, and 5 in between shorts.
Well, those were mainly with Coulson, which are awesome.
But they
Coulson was a big part of the Avengers. He might as well have been
He's like the common denominator showing up in most of those films.
they needed the push.
And that's such a great moment.
Yeah.
But we've got Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, which is only tangentially related.
Yeah.
It's basically a one shot because you only get about that much time with Batman handling his
and Flash.
And the sequence between Amanda Waller and
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So that's relevant. Wonder Woman and Justice League. So you got 4, but they've done so much seeding in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, that was kind of forced in there.
A lot of it felt like it.
Yeah.
So it just feels like Justice League has not had the chance to
Properly build up.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. But I get they're trying to be different from Marvel. Makes sense. Do your own thing, but
Marvel needs to be different from Marvel at this point.
well, that's also a thing. But
that's a different podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, they just didn't build up enough. So I feel like all the seeds in BVS were very rushed and they were very convenient because Batman had all the info already.
Yeah.
And I get it. If we should have had a Batman movie with him, like that was his, maybe that was kind of the leading
I think
story.
that's what BVS was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be our Batman movie, but unfortunately the Batman aspects of it are the weakest parts of the film, except for the Bruce Wayne,
Among
part
all
of
the other ones.
but that we've clearly established. And I want to say that the problems we have with BVS are all largely directly related to the fact that Zack Snyder was at the helm.
Right.
And so these problems, I'm concerned, and I think we're all concerned, that those are going to be on Justice League as a project.
Because even bringing in Joss Whedon to get it across the finish line, there's only so much he can do.
Right. A lot of it was already shot.
Yeah. And this is a personal issue. I don't like having Cyborg as a founding member of the Justice League.
Okay.
I have mentioned in other podcasts that I am 45 years old. By the way, when we were listening to the Ages episodes, and I said I was a 46-year-old man, Charlotte said, my wife says, you're 45. Fuck, yeah, I am. Anyway.
Congratulations, Dave.
But my point is, I'm an old man, so clearly I can't remember my own age. But for me,
Hang on. You're only 40. You've said you're 46 in like 3 different podcasts.
I know.
Congratulations, gave yourself a year.
I am leaving this in.
That's fine. I deserve it.
So this is a podcast, and Dave's 45.
For those of you not watching here, Shaba is rolling all over the couch with laughter. I deserve it.
Oh my god!
Like I said, I'm an old man. I can't remember
Shit happens, man.
So you're a 45-year-old
Anyway, so I'm a 45-year-old man, and I am from that age of comics readers where Cyborg was a member of the Teen Titans.
Yes.
And that's how I like
I'm
it.
a 30-year-old man, and Cyborg is a member of the Teen Titans.
But I also understand they're looking, they're trying to diversify the cast, because let's face it, in the original comics, the Justice League is all white people. So I get that, but I have a solution. You ready for my solution?
Bring it.
Green Lantern?
John Stewart, Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's what's funny. When the Green Lantern movie came out with Ryan Reynolds,
It was so good.
it was terrible.
It was awful.
It took me 3 tries and a lot of beer.
That's not in this universe, right?
No.
That's not exactly clear to me.
I don't think so.
But we can come back to that.
Yeah.
All my students at the time said, Mr. Ziegler, I thought Green Lantern was black, because they grew up with Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's the Green Lantern in Justice League Unlimited? John Stewart, a proud
Phil
black
Lamar.
man.
Yeah.
Said Phil Lamar.
That's right, Phil Lamar. And so,
Yeah. Put him in.
it's clear that they're planning to reincorporate the Green Lanterns into the universe at some point.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, Warner Brothers has shown us that they are going to make decisions certainly based on money.
Well, welcome to a movie studio.
Welcome to movie studios. They made a very wise choice in the directing choices and crew choice, producer choice of Wonder Woman.
Outstanding choice.
Wonder Woman received rave reviews. It is one of the top grossing individual superhero films of all time.
Yeah.
It broke a lot of the formulas that a lot of these other studios have been doing. And it showed a lot of really, really powerful pieces of information to these movie studios. So I think it would be a terrible mistake if Warner Brothers didn't take the nods from Wonder Woman and try to push those instead of pushing some of the things that they have done with BVS and Zack Snyder.
But they won't, because, and yes, we can say, well, they had to start filming Justice League before Wonder Woman was released, before they knew how it would play out.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that. However, one of the things that they've said is we want our films to be more reflective of the directors that we hire. And yet...
They only hire Zack Snyder.
And yet, they've had 2 or 3 different directors for the Flash film.
Yeah.
At least one director leave Aquaman.
Yeah. They had a few for Suicide Squad.
On the one hand, one of the reasons for Marvel's success is Kevin Feige. That's the dude at the top of the pyramid that everything kind of gets filtered through. He's the unifying vision. There's no unifying vision for the DCEU.
It was Zack Snyder originally, although...
And that's a terrible choice.
You're right.
And now so now if they're bringing in Jeff Johns, which it looks like what they're doing, and with Brian Michael Bendis signing on with DC, he's probably going to be involved in the films as well because he was part of the Marvel committee.
He was originally,
So
I forgot about the Marvel committee.
Yeah,
but if we look at how Green Lantern did, and if Warner Brothers is going to listen to what's happened and make their financial choices based on that, the idea of bringing in a Green Lantern, as far as they're concerned, is poison.
But it doesn't have to be.
No, but that also requires them to take a chance, which they haven't.
Yeah.
Batman vs. Superman is a very safe film. The most risky move they've had is him snap Zod's neck.
I'd actually argue that letting Patty Jenkins direct Wonder Woman was the most risky movie.
I mean, story-wise.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Patty Jenkins was incredible. Mm-hmm. I don't know who did the cinematography, but they also were fantastic as well. Not as creative as I would have liked them to be, but they didn't make terribly lazy choices either. And I loved what they did to really show how even in a simple combat, the Amazons are far beyond the scope of the average human. Mm-hmm. And if that and it's not excessive wire work like what you would see with, say, Wolverine, who seems to float every time he pulls his claws out.
Yeah.
But it's still it seemed feasible.
Seemed natural looking.
So I think she did a marvelous job, and I think the acting choices were fantastic. Mm-hmm. You laugh, and she has this sort of Thor-esque misunderstanding of how the world works, while also being incredibly intelligent. So you never think, oh, this bumbling oaf. You instead are like, oh, she's naive. Oh, she's totally gonna kick your ass though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she was like, well, I've read all 12 books of the pleasures of the flesh.
Yeah.
You're like, and she's really smart.
Yeah.
Like she's wicked smart. And I don't know. I think I could gush forever about how much I love the Wonder Woman movie. Sure. I mean, I did just come out of it, so maybe it'll take me a day and a half to settle down. But I think that woman, Patty Jenkins, she needs to be involved in more of this.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Zach Snyder, I don't wish his current problems in his life on any human being ever. But I think that the film may be able to have a better chance at being closer to the source material in a way that is respectful with somebody like Joss Whedon coming in.
Yeah.
And I have shared on this podcast more than once that I have some problems with Joss Whedon as of late. Most of those started because of Age of Ultron. But I think that given how much of it has already been filmed, his ability to turn it into a giant quip fest is going to be knocked down a little bit. And if he can keep those quips to The Flash and Cyborg and not to Wonder Woman and Batman, I think it'll be okay.
Might be right. It's still going to be a weird clash,
but that's part of the joy of Justice League.
But they haven't set that joy up at all with these last few movies, and that's why it's clashing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to clash.
How do you feel about Aquaman? I feel like Aquaman's finally a badass again. He's been made fun of for 2 decades.
Okay, but let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Please.
We make fun of Aquaman, and by we, I mean all you clowns out there. Aquaman gets made fun of because of the old Super Friends cartoon. Okay? However, think about the fact that Aquaman functions at the bottom of the ocean. His body on land is every bit as strong as Wonder Woman's because
he doesn't have thousands of pounds of pressure on him.
Bingo. There's that. If you want to talk about the whole talking to fish thing, we all have that reptilian primitive part of our brains. And in some of the Jeff Johns comics, he uses that,
Really?
So, I have almost nothing good to say about DC's New 52 period because most of it was terrible. Wonder Woman was awesome.
The Batman
and Robin.
Batman and Robin was great. And there's like 3 other Batman books, but one of them, it might have been not Dark Knight. Anyways, one of the Batman books was really good too.
Anyway, but Johns' Aquaman book was really good as well.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
And he was tying in a lot with what he was doing on Justice League,
cool,
etc. still don't like Cyborg as part of the Justice League.
Right.
At least not a founding member of the Justice League.
That's fair.
But I like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I don't have a problem with them casting a man who looks like he lives in the ocean. Yeah. Who is Hawaiian, who looks like an islander being Aquaman. I'm fine with that. There's nothing.
I was really excited with that.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good bit of casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that. It's no secret that the big villain they're building up to here is Darkseid. But I think if they actually end up trotting him out in this film, I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot more interesting choices they could make for the first Justice League movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Having said that, like I said, I like Wonder Woman. I'm interested in Aquaman.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
I'll give Cyborg a chance. I'm curious about The Flash because I have not seen many episodes of the Flash TV series, but my impression is that A, they're both Barry Allen.
Yeah.
Right.
And B, they're both played very differently. The two actors make radically different choices.
Oh, definitely.
Really?
I feel based on
I've seen the first season and a half of the Flash show.
Well, and
it's really good, but yeah.
The DC television universe
is separate.
is still within the multiverse of DC's cinematic multiverse. Whereas the Marvel has a cinematic universe, the DC has a cinematic multiverse.
Right.
Because Barry Allen, there's not a reason that you could have Barry Allen from the Flash television show meet Barry Allen from the film. It is something that is within the realm of possibilities.
My impression, though, is that movie Barry's personality is more like Wally West. Those of you who are not comic book readers, if you go back to the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, Wally West is the Flash. He's a lot more flighty. He's a lot less focused.
Yeah, a little goofy.
Yeah, he's not the scientist that Barry Allen is. And my impression of the movie Flash, based on the short bits we saw in BVS and in Suicide Squad, is that this is more like Wally. So make him Wally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason. There's no real reason not to. But
yeah, and I think it would have helped differentiate from the TV show Flash a little bit more, a little bit better.
Yeah,
because that people love that show and it's a great show. I really like it. I need to catch up.
I watched.
So I know there's a lot of when they announced that they're going to have a Flash or the Flash in Justice League in the movies here, they're like, you guys better bring in dude from the TV show,
Grant Gustin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's great.
I think a lot of people were a little put off by that with the idea that they've done all this great setup on the TV, and just like Marvel, they're not bridging those gaps, and they could.
Well, but Marvel has made it clear that the TV shows exist in the same universe as the films.
Right.
Whereas DC is saying, no.
They're separate.
Yeah, Gotham is a different world than...
Well, and Gotham isn't even the same world as
the other
Green Arrow,
Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow.
But those are all within one universe.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And those aren't all on the same channel, though, are they?
They are now,
They are now.
Okay.
CW. Yeah, now that Supergirl got brought over.
Well, in Supergirl's first season, when she was on CBS, they did a crossover,
which was really cool and unexpected.
Yeah.
So now we are at the point of Justice League. It only took us a little bit. Justice League's coming out at the end of this week. Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot is fantastic.
Yes.
We know Momoa is fantastic. I've never seen a role that he's played that I didn't enjoy. And it seems that they're writing him well. I mean, Aquaman is sort of in charge of 75% of the planet.
Yeah, and it seems his personality seems a little lighter than comic book Aquaman.
Sure.
And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Because
as long as he isn't another Namor Submariner, because I can't stand that personality.
Well, we need to have heroes who enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Batman does not seem to enjoy what he does.
No.
Superman doesn't seem to enjoy what he does.
I really hope Batman is as condescending about intellect as Justice League Unlimited Batman is, where he says things like, I think Flash in one episode suggests running around the world so fast that time goes backwards or something, and he's like, in the time it would take you to do that, I couldn't explain why it won't work. But, things like that snarky, like, what are you doing? And it seems from the little bits of trailers that I've seen, they are kind of doing that Flash Batman interaction of Batman being like,
I could see that.
Don't touch anything.
And Flash, what's this? What's this?
I
What's
like
this?
Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, and I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred.
Oh, yeah.
I love...
Is Alfred in this?
Yeah.
Why?
Who knows?
Because I believe they're going to the Batcave as their initial place of meetup.
Okay, that makes sense.
I guess.
Before we get the Hall of Justice.
Justice.
Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice.
Ted Knight was a gift and too good for this world. Take that back.
I take nothing. But I think Momoa's a good choice. Gal Gadot's a good choice. Ben Affleck has proven himself to be a pretty solid Bruce Wayne and a decent Batman. We know nothing of Cyborg and little of the Flash at this point.
Right.
And from what I've seen in the trailers, I think I'm going to enjoy the Flash a lot. From what I've seen of the films, I know that I'll enjoy Batman and Wonder Woman quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think Batman's character shines when he's around other people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think he's
definitely.
been kind of weak by himself as far as how he's been portrayed. But I feel like there's a lot of good dominoes set up for a quality show.
Yeah.
You know, I think the film
willing to
could
give
go
it-
really well.
I'm willing to give it the benefit
Oh,
of the doubt.
definitely, yeah. I want to. I want it to be a good movie.
I liked Suicide Squad. It had a lot of problems. I don't want to see those problems happen again. If they didn't learn from those problems, then I'm going to be really annoyed.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Man of Steel a lot. We did spend like 45 minutes on Krypton, so I'm hoping that the setup of this film won't take that long.
Krypton was really cool, though.
Krypton was really cool.
That was probably my favorite part of that movie. Just all the sci-fi-ness.
It was definitely a different version of Krypton than we usually
totally,
get.
yeah.
And so I was certainly intrigued by that.
Yeah.
I liked that it was
And they're supposed to be doing a TV
falling
show
apart
on it.
Yes. I don't know if it's going to tie into...
movies.
I suspect it's going to be more like
Tie in for
Gotham in
Supergirl.
terms of its relation
Yeah.
to the films. In
But
other
it's supposed to be based on that super advanced sci-fi.
I think it's like Jor-El's grandparents. You know, it's like the House of El.
Yeah.
You
Gotcha.
know, like Game of Thrones, Krypton.
Yeah.
well, hopefully they'll do a better job than Marvel did with Inhumans.
It'll be hard for them to do a
different
worse job.
podcast.
That's another...
So that is actually a different podcast. We got that one planned for later.
Yeah.
Let's get the negative stuff out of the way because we've spent this whole podcast
We've been...
bitching. So let's get the negative stuff about Justice League. What are you afraid that they'll do with Justice League?
I'm afraid that their reach will exceed their grasp. In other words, I'm afraid that they're going to try and do too much, cram too much into the film, try and...
That's what Suicide Squad's problem was, in my opinion. Was one of my biggest flaws as far as I'm concerned with Suicide Squad.
was a definite flaw
The
in that
setup
movie.
of all these characters,
I don't know if it was the major one, but...
not nearly enough time to truly establish who they were.
I'm afraid that Justice League is going to go for the money shot too early.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no build-up.
Yeah, exactly. The only buildup we've gotten so far is the nightmare scene and the Lex's "it's coming, something's coming," blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, the
ranting
big.
in jail.
Yeah,
you know.
in Arkham.
And was he in Arkham?
He was.
Okay. So I'm afraid that Justice League is gonna try and be big, awesome, no buildup.
Yeah. Okay.
So
How about you, Brian?
Honestly, I don't care. I'm going into this movie just to go. I'm so over the DC movie universe. Wonder Woman definitely saved it, and that's kind of what's bringing me any kind of interest.
yeah,
Not right again. I'm not going to watch the first weekend. I got Punisher to watch,
Okay.
but I'm still going to see it within the next 2 weeks that it's open.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
I grew up loving Batman. I love Batman. I really enjoyed Batman and The Dark Knight, or Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
Right.
I enjoyed all 4 of the Batman movies
90s.
that came out of Tim Burton's Batman. I was a child. Give me a break.
I didn't say
Going
anything.
back and watching them again, Forever and Robin
Yeah.
are terrible. But I still love Batman and Batman Returns. And I think Danny DeVito was a wonderful Penguin. And even Christopher Walken's pretty great.
You know, just real quick, I just want to throw out the idea that I think that Batman Returns has some long-lasting, far-reaching consequences that we're still feeling today. It's that whole 2-villain thing.
Oh.
Trying to cram 2 villains into one movie.
Or just a superhero movie in general.
Yeah.
that's a thing.
Well, exactly, because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we see it through some of the Marvel stuff. Some of it is a more subtle setup for other things.
Right.
And others, it's really blatant and dumb and obvious. And so...
Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 had like 5 villains in it.
Yeah.
But, okay,
That was a whole nother thing.
back on Batman.
Right.
I loved Batman when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
By the end of Batman versus Superman, I didn't love Batman.
Mm-hmm.
The best part about Batman versus Superman for me by the end of it was Wonder Woman and Lois Lane. I also actually like Superman. I don't necessarily like all of the things surrounding him and all of his choices, but I think that Henry Cavill, I think he's a great Superman.
Oh, I agree.
I think he's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to him
Mm-hmm.
showing up at the end of this damn movie because he's going to have to.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to this movie to go see Batman.
Right.
I'm going to this movie to go see Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love a woman who can kick my ass. And I've said that since Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop says
For
it.
as long as I've known you.
Yeah. And I think Wonder Woman is right now the best thing that Warner Brothers has going for it.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Ben Affleck is still finding his footing. I really hope that he as Batman kills it in this movie because I want my Batman back.
Yeah.
I want my
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy Batman back. And I don't know that I have him in Ben Affleck yet. I like Superman. I think Henry Cavill captures the cartoon Superman a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Maybe not the Justice League Unlimited version of him, but definitely the Superman animated series. Mm-hmm. Superman, he reminds me of that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Aquaman, I'm looking forward to him. I know I've got nothing other than that I love Jason Momoa. Mm-hmm. The Flash, I'm actually a little concerned about him, but from what I've seen about the trailers, from what I saw in Batman vs. Superman, I'm kind of indifferent about The Flash. From what I saw in Suicide Squad, maybe I'm kind of excited, but from what I saw in the trailers, I actually am like, The Flash is going to crack me up. He's going to be my Spider-Man on this team, and that's fine. I'm going into this movie for Wonder Woman. I'm excited for this movie because Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I'm not excited for this movie for anything else. No one else is bringing me to the...
I think most people are coming to see this movie for Wonder Woman.
Other than just seeing the bunch of superheroes get together.
Sure. And, for me, I'm a longtime Justice League fan. Mm-hmm. I've got boxes of Justice League comics.
Yeah.
And while I recognize that, sometimes you got to make changes as you adapt from one medium to another, et cetera, one of the things that I think Warner Brothers has consistently misfired with the DC films, except for Wonder Woman, is there is a core of goodness to them.
Yeah.
And we don't really get that sense. We don't get it in Suicide Squad, and we're not supposed to.
Yeah, right. And that's okay.
I'm fine with that. I liked Suicide Squad quite a bit. Jared Leto,
But Will Smith's goodness and other characters' goodness coming out was cool because you didn't necessarily expect it.
Right.
Here, when it doesn't show up at all, it can be really challenging.
It's a problem.
Especially when in the comics, in the characters in general, that's what drives them.
Yeah. Superman stands for, and I quote, truth, justice, and the American way. It's why he has a march as his theme song. It's why the instrumentation of him is trumpets, fanfare, and snare drums. Mm-hmm. Superman is supposed to be the epitome of doing good because you can and you should.
And because it's the right thing to do.
Because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Superman gets the cat out of the tree just as much as he goes and blocks refugees from being shot as they're running to boats. That's what he does, and he has the power to do it. And so he uses all of his time to do that, except when he's writing, which I'm sure he can do super fast.
Yes. I'm not one of, I've said before in other episodes that, I don't have any respect for the people who roll out here, well, so-and-so ruined my childhood. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm not here to say, well, Warner Brothers is going to ruin my childhood. My
childhood's safe.
My childhood was pretty idyllic.
Yeah.
And I will be really disappointed if they can't get their shit together.
Yeah.
Because they're running, they're trying to get this thing off the ground and they're running out of runway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they screw up Justice League,
they're
done. They're pretty much done. They can try and reboot it again in 20 years.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four. You only need 10.
Spider-Man.
You only need 10. Spider-Man. You can reboot it twice in less than 5.
Yeah. I think it was a great idea that they brought on Jeff Johns to basically be the Kevin Feige and take over from Zach Snyder.
Yeah.
He's doing some great stuff in the comics these days.
Is he?
Oh yeah. I don't read a whole lot of DC books, and I need to read more of Jeff Johns books in general.
Well,
Yep.
Justice League's coming out at the end of this week. You're not going to see it until after Thanksgiving. You're not going to probably see it until after Thanksgiving.
I will definitely see it during Thanksgiving.
The break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is coming up. That's it's a week away.
Yeah.
So I guess really the only thing here is what are you actually looking forward to? What do you want this film to be? I don't want to go into any film with expectations, and I don't recommend anybody ever go into a film with expectations because they often will either be, even if they're not met and the film is still good, you'll still wind up with a little bit of disappointment. But if you have this really great idea for how something's going to show, that's why fan theories can be dangerous sometimes.
Well, Darth Jar Jar. I love that idea.
God, it's so good.
I really wouldn't mind Jar Jar showing up as an old
Clown.
Snoke.
I don't want Jar Jar showing up as Snoke, but I wouldn't mind Jar Jar showing up.
I'm down with that.
I wouldn't mind Jar Jar showing up and being just this broken man who knows that he was the cause of all of this pain.
But they didn't set him up like that in the books.
So anyway,
so what I would like to see, I just want a good movie. I want a good movie that honors the characters, and I know Warner Brothers is capable of that because look at the Harry Potter movies. I felt like they really captured the essence of the characters.
Yeah.
They worked closely with Rowling, and even though you had several directors over the course of the film series, there was an understanding that this is who these characters are.
Yeah.
And you can't change that. You can't screw that up. If they had made Ron a mohawked punk skinhead,
right,
it wouldn't have worked
with tattoos of "ha-ha" all over his face and all that. Wait,
Ooh,
Wizard Wheezes, right,
tattooed on his chest.
I didn't have a problem with the Joker's tattoos.
And let's make sure the Death Eaters, instead of being, or not Death Eaters, the Dementors, instead of being these ghostly figures that kind of hover around, let's turn them into really short, squat dudes.
Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, like Oompa Loompas.
Right.
Like Killer Croc.
So be.
I hated Killer Croc in Suicide Squad. That dude needs to look like the lizard from Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Killer Croc. Well, but I think Killer Croc in Suicide Squad was more accurate to his original appearances in Batman in the comics.
Was he not a 6.5 foot tall beast?
No.
Really?
He was a dude with a skin condition. He was really strong and could outfight anybody just in terms of brawling.
Yeah.
But he was not the animalistic creature. Sewer creature.
They still pushed him through the sewer.
Well, he was a crime boss. His first appearances are, hey, I'm the new crime boss of Gotham City.
All right. Well,
so
I'm glad to know that now.
So the Suicide Squad...
See how expectations can get in the way?
Exactly. So the Suicide Squad version of Killer Croc is more in line with his original appearances.
Okay,
that's cool.
It's certainly not how he's been portrayed for the last, 15-20 years.
Yeah.
He's a lot more bestial, a lot more animal, a lot more like the lizard, like he said, from the Spider-Man movies. So I understand where you're coming from. But for Justice League, I just want them to be mindful of the characters that they have. These are characters with, in some cases, 75, 80-year legacies.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can kind of stretch and twist those a little bit. We can have Michael Keaton as Batman, and Adam West as Batman, and Kevin Conroy as Batman, and have those be very different interpretations, and still be
Batman,
really great and recognizable as Batman.
Oh yeah.
So keep that in mind. Don't be in such a hurry to catch up with Marvel that you trip over your shoelaces,
right?
And
trying to get out the door.
Yeah. So just be a good movie.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm looking for, because the only movie I really liked was Wonder Woman, and everything else was just crap to me. I'm like, just give me a good movie. And it would. Joss Whedon coming in, he's, for the most part, he makes good movies, and so hopefully he can fix whatever was wrong. If there was anything wrong, it was Snyder, so there's probably some stuff wrong. But I think the biggest thing for me is just not having a big clash between Joss Whedon's writing and quippy one-liner style.
Well, Joss Whedon, I'm positive that Joss Whedon made a great Avengers sequel, and I will never see it. I do think he is capable of making really good films.
What do you mean you'll never see? You didn't see Age of Ultron?
I saw Age of Ultron, and it was 2 hours and 15 minutes instead of 3 like he had originally made. So much was cut out of Joss Whedon's original version of that film.
And there's some good deleted scenes in there that were like, oh, this would have been awesome.
This would have helped make things make more sense.
Yeah. Well,
but I feel like Joss Whedon can come in and provide a lot of stuff, especially if DC's willing to work with him.
I feel like that, though, is a studio issue.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
it's a studio issue that DC doesn't seem to have.
Well, we'll see how this turns out.
Yeah.
We will. I think we're going to have to do a follow-up.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay, yeah. I'll be here for Christmas break. Well, Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. In a couple weeks after we've watched it, let's do a quick follow-up on it.
Down.
Ask me what I'm reading.
Dave, what are you reading?
It's funny you should ask. Because I've been kind of going over some of my favorite Justice League stories lately.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah?
Indeed, I have. So I've been reading the first part of the Grant Morrison, Howard Porter Justice League run. Mm-hmm. Super good. Just as good as I remember. And one of the things that I like is that Morrison is the first one to go back to kind of the big seven, the big guns.
Yeah.
Because prior to this, in some very successful, very enjoyable works, DC had kind of gotten away from Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash as members of the Justice League because they all had their own books.
Yeah.
And so it was hard, the way they were managing their continuity at the time, it was hard to have Justice League be an important book because you couldn't do the character development.
Right. Makes sense.
So Morrison brings them all back in and makes it fit with the continuity. You know, at the end of issue 4, the first part, the end of the first storyline, we've got regular Superman, etc., etc. Issue 5, we've got Electric Superman, for the Superman Blue, Superman Red storyline. He doesn't even talk about that fact. It's just there.
It's just there.
None of the characters comment on it.
Yeah.
It's just accepted by that point. So
that's cool. I like when that happens.
Yeah. So I like that. One of my all-time favorite stories is called Destiny's Hand, and it was from Justice League 72 through 75 in the 90s. I think it was just reprinted in either the Superman and the Justice League trade paperback or the Wonder Woman and the Justice League trade paperback. But it's super awesome. Well, I don't want to spoil it.
Good to know.
Destiny's Hand, super awesome.
So these are kind of books that if people want to just check up and read up on,
they can find them on Amazon.com. They can find them at Barnes & Noble. Yeah. They can get them on Comixology, through Amazon that way, digitally. So those are two that I've been reading recently. And I'm a big fan of their multiple Earth crossovers, the Earth 1, Earth 2 crossovers. Yeah. When I was a kid, every summer, JLA and JSA crossed over. JSA didn't have its own book at that point, but the JSA would show up in the Justice League book for 2 or 3 months.
Oh, cool.
And sometimes they'd go to yet a different Earth. Those JLA, JSA crossovers are where we first see Earth 3 and the crime syndicate.
Oh, okay.
We get Earth X, where the Nazis won World War II, and the Freedom Fighters. Yeah. And
all part of that multiverse, which is really cool how DC set that up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are just a couple of the ones that I've been reading lately.
Yeah.
Brian, you reading any
DC stuff? I am. I'm trying to keep up with Super Sons. It is awesome fun. It's doesn't take itself too seriously, but has great character work.
And for our listeners who aren't familiar, what is the conceit of the Super Sons?
So it's Damian Wayne, who is Bruce Wayne's son. Long story short, he was conceived in...
He's Talia's son.
Talia al Ghul's son.
Right, and she trained him to be this, badass.
Talia and her father, Ra's al Ghul, did train him to be an assassin.
Yeah.
Which, when he shows up at Bruce's place, hey, Dad, Bruce has to, kind of take him in hand and...
X-23 him a little bit.
Say, hey, man, this is not how we roll here.
Yeah, so that was... I was reading Batman and Robin for a bit, and... that was a really cool dynamic with that. And it's got Superman's son, John. And that's an interesting backstory.
Can we do a little hand waving and say multiple Earths?
Yeah, the whole multiple Earths,
multiverse.
Multiple Batmans. Yes. Yeah. So he's there. So this kind of spins out of a 2-issue arc in, I think it was the New 52 No, it was Rebirth.
It was Rebirth of Superman.
Superman, yeah. Batman, Superman got together and then brought the Sons, and the Sons just started getting little shenanigans, and it's kind of them. It's Batman and Superman trying to train the Sons on how to have teamwork with one another, basically.
So kind of like a World's Finest, the next generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's super fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's good stuff there.
And that's the latest in a line of Robin Superboy team-ups.
Yeah.
Because Robin and Superboy used to hang out in the Teen Titans or Young Justice.
Yeah. So then I'm also reading the event that's going on with DC.
Oh, Metal. Yeah.
Metal. Dark Knight's Metal.
I'm going to wait and get that in the trade.
Yeah. It's the first 3 issues are out. There's a bunch of tie-ins that give backstory on some of the dark Batmen that are around. I haven't read those yet. The main story is great so far because Batman kind of goes missing. No real big spoilers. And he kind of doesn't show up for 3 issues. New issue came out, a tie-in that kind of shows what he's been going through. So I need to go read that probably tomorrow. Enjoying that.
Cool. Shaba, how about you? What are you reading?
So I moved into my house in Pasadena back in January, and I have just really started to make a significant dent in unpacking everything. It's been a long process because I had 5 years of my life kind of boxed into a storage unit. So I've been going through years of stuff. And in this last major push that I've been going through, I found all of my long boxes.
Oh, nice.
And in those are, right after Convergence, Green Arrow started up. And it was right after he had died at the hands of Deathstroke. And I had gotten those issues, and I was like, this is great. And then I figured it would keep going, and it just started a whole new series with all the Convergence stuff. I haven't even gotten to touch Convergence #1. So I'm basically going back to, what was this, a year ago?
Oh, more than that.
2
years ago now?
About 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. So I'm just picking up that portion of Green Arrow because I love Green Arrow. I'm trying to get through that now, and I'm finally picking up and kind of catching up on comics.
Nice.
Which he's kind of come back as this sort of social justice warrior without being too terribly obnoxious about it. Black Canary is trying to deal with like the little guy, and she keeps treating him terribly because Oliver Queen is because he's a rich boy.
Well, but that's, I mean, the whole, social justice thing is part of Green Arrow's character for decades, like we talked about with the hard traveling heroes in our Ages of Comics discussion a couple weeks ago.
So he's coming into this still as the rich person who's like, no, I help people, and she's like, but do you? Because you do it as a vigilante, but you don't put your money where your mouth is at all. And she kind of treats him as this 1%er, and he is trying to explain, and that's about as far as I've gotten into it. Okay. But I did enjoy the writing so far. I really want a story with Zatanna because she's another one of my favorites from when I read Identity Crisis. And then the next time I go to Blast Off, I'm picking up a new DC trade of some sort. I don't know which one it'll be, but Jed will make me do it.
I will make a recommendation for you.
Oh, I'd love to hear one.
Since you mentioned your affection for Zatanna, Paul Dini, who has a similar fondness for Zatanna, did a 13-16 issue series that DC recently collected into one book.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
From what time period?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Right on.
Well before the New 52.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's Paul Dini.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not who are not familiar with the name Paul Dini was one of the main writers on the Batman animated series.
Yeah. He created Harley.
Yeah, and one of the co-creators of Harley Quinn. So
yeah.
Right on. I also, after this evening's viewing of Wonder Woman and last night's viewing of BVS, I really, really liked Wonder Woman in Kingdom Come.
Yes.
I thought she was one of the best parts of that storyline as well. And I think I need to start reading some Wonder Woman.
My man, have you come to the right place? Because I got more recommendations if you want them.
I would love some Wonder Woman recommendations.
Okay. Greg Rucka just finished his second run on Wonder Woman.
Oh, right.
He had one back before Infinite Crisis, which was super great, and it's being re-released in trade paperbacks, Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka.
Okay.
His second run, the Rebirth stuff, also super good.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can recommend both of those runs. without reservation. Also, I mentioned earlier that Wonder Woman was pretty much the only New 52 book that I really enjoyed.
Right.
Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chang's run on Wonder Woman was magnificent. And I'll concede, part of that was because it was largely self-contained. Wonder Woman was showing up in other books doing stuff, but in her series, she was pretty much left to her own devices.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's such a great story. Wonder Woman, I probably shouldn't. I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Okay.
But it's super good. Once Azzarello and Chang finish their story and Meredith and David Finch come in, you can stop.
Okay.
It's not very good.
Good to know.
Okay.
But the Azzarello Chang run has been collected into, I think, 6 volumes.
Okay.
The long run.
Yes.
Yeah, that is.
Oh yeah,
That's
it was.
awesome.
Yeah, it's so good.
Do we know yet what Bendis is gonna be writing?
We don't.
Nothing's been announced yet, but I've got a couple theories if you're interested.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know, Brian Michael Bendis, who we've mentioned a few times before, he was a major part of the Marvel Creative Committee for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he was responsible for some of my personal favorite stories in the Marvel Universe and the comics.
And he basically helped reboot Marvel Comics in the early 2000s with Avengers Disassembled.
Yeah.
That kind of gave...
That new age that we discussed that we couldn't quite identify really starts with Brian Michael Bendis' story. So he's done some pretty amazing work.
Yeah, some great stuff.
As much grief as I give him for various choices he's made in the later years, I have to tip my hat for House of M, Disassembled, Miles Morales stuff.
Alias, the Jessica Jones stuff.
Yes. So he left Marvel and is now at DC.
He's
and has
finishing
a
up
contract.
Marvel
Yeah.
because
This was a big bombshell.
Oh yeah,
This was
no one expected this at all.
huge. Well, I think rumors had been kind of floating around
He's been doing a lot less work with Marvel in general,
and being a lot less involved in the crossovers.
and the overall, yeah.
So I suspect that, and I think I alluded to this earlier, that he will be involved on the film side.
movie side.
I think that he is going to take over a Batman book at some point.
I could see that.
Because he had that long run on Daredevil, and as you mentioned, Daredevil and Batman, I have a similar kind of feel to them.
Street level grit.
Yeah. So I would be not at all surprised to see him do some kind of Batman project.
Yeah.
I think that...
I could see him doing a Flash book too.
Yeah, I think I've heard that one mentioned as a possibility. I can see him doing a Justice League book. Brian Hitch's run on Justice League is coming to an end soon.
Right.
His teamwork and his teen work are both really strong.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised to see him do something spy-ish. Something like Checkmate or maybe Suicide Squad. In his early pre-Marvel indie career, he did a lot of crime books.
Right.
He might also, if Warner's is willing to rewrite kind of the standard Vertigo contract, maybe he'll bring Powers along and fire that back up. Powers being one of his creator-owned series with Michael Avon Oeming.
Yeah.
His early pre-Marvel work was a lot of crime stuff. He was also a cartoonist. He did a lot of drawing as well. He also does some humor. Humor is always part of his work. But he did a book called Fortune and Glory about his time working in Hollywood. Now, this one is hearsay on my part. But people I know who have read it say, A, it's funny as hell, and B, it's painfully accurate.
Oh, okay.
So
Did he write the original Miles Morales?
Yes.
Yes.
So those first issues of Miles Morales Spider-Man, they're brilliant.
Oh yeah,
They're
great.
funny.
His
take seriousness where they should. There's a great balance of what's going on with the Prowler and everything else, as well as the introduction of several new characters.
Well, his work on Ultimate Spider-Man was with Mark Bagley. Brilliant. And really made the Ultimate Universe what it was.
Yeah.
That's what.
No, you don't go to the Ultimate Universe for the Ultimates, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Volume 1.
Volume 1 was pretty good. I dug that. After
that Captain America, I could see becoming a Nazi.
Yeah.
Fair.
That's a whole nother podcast with that one.
Whole nother one, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening again and tuning in. If you really liked it, please comment, subscribe, make sure that you give us a review, whether you liked us or not. More the merrier.
Make sure you tell your friends. And if you didn't like the podcast, tell your enemies.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.